LodeStar's Lending Leaders Summer Sessions. Between Two Palms, actually, is what we've decided to call this summer series. And this week, we're going to be diving into Jim's home buying journey. So I'm going to actually take the lead of host and pepper him with questions. So yeah, let's just kind of jump right into it. How did you what were your first steps in deciding you were ready to purchase a home?
Sure. And this was kind of like dirty little secret. I was actually on a call once with someone talking about the industry and saying like, hey, I deal with these people at this company and they've never even bought a home. And I said, well, George, I've never bought a home either. I was 35, been in this industry for a long time, always rented. I was living in New York City at the time. My wife and I moved down here. It just wasn't, starting a business, tes up some assets as well. So it was just always not really, the time for us. So my wife and I having our daughter this fall, we were kind of at a point in time where we felt ready. Also an awful point in time for the market. I am further in the process now, but I would say in general, there's still homes to be bought out there. There's still ways to go through the process in a good way. I'm feeling very, very happy about it so far. But I think our overall decision to buy was just more with our own timing than anything else. We weren't worried about timing a market. We weren't necessarily rising prices affected us in some ways, obviously, but I think it was the decision to say, let's buy was just more of, hey, we want a house. We're ready. We want a place where we are living for a while and feels like we're really kind of putting down roots. So for that, the next step is then what do you do from there?
Yeah. And I think, so as someone with a spouse that is obviously not in the mortgage industry, you kind of feel this responsibility to educate them. How did you kind of go about that? Because it's a very delicate thing. If anyone's had to ever educate their spouse on something, it's not always fun.
Yes. And I would, usually anytime I'm in those situations, my answer is have someone else do it.
Yeah.
And someone else that they would respond well to. So we actually signed up for a course from one of our podcast guests, Stacy Reel. She did a Homebuyer 101 course, which I think was really helpful. It demystified the process for us. Honestly helped me too, because I'm kind of the worst homebuyer client in some ways that I know a lot about very specific points of the process and very little about other points beyond that.
I would imagine you're a pain to work with.
Yeah. And so I tried to be very upfront in everyone I dealt with. So going through that Homebuyer 101 class, I think made things helpful of, how do you get started? How do you go from looking online, looking at listings? Yeah. What do you have to do before you go see a listing? Pre-qual versus pre-approval, all of these different terms that, sure, I could explain to my wife, but it's going to be better to kind of go through it in a different way. And then we talked about it after. So it was, I think, like a 40-minute class, super duper helpful. I'm sure there's a lot of kind of first-time home buyer classes out there. A lot of people put them on for free because they want to work with first-time home buyers. Yeah. So I would recommend utilizing that because it's just a good way to kind of get up to speed on all of that.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I think, as someone whose spouse does not work in this industry, I definitely feel that as well. It's definitely an ongoing conversation of explaining, why are closing costs a thing? Why is this a thing? And I definitely can see it would be kind of a pain to explain that in your relationship.
And then things like, we have to pay mortgage insurance. What's mortgage insurance? Yeah. What goes into your monthly costs? How is the offer process going to go? So it was, I think, just really interesting from that. And I think one thing that, I talked to a lot of people, especially that I know in the industry, when I said I was looking for a house, everyone was like, you are out of your mind right now. You are crazy, right? And I think one of our biggest things throughout the process, and this is what pretty much any Homebuyer 101 course would tell you, is make a budget. Yeah. Right? Of what's, I didn't think of it of X, this is the selling price on a house, right? I thought of it as, this is what we're currently paying monthly for basically any cost that is going to go away when we move. So this is what we can pay going forward with maybe a small increase. And that was kind of the way we continued to think about it the whole time, was in that monthly cost, opposed to, you're buying a house that was $50,000 less a year ago, right? Sure. Yes, in some cases, that doesn't always necessarily matter because it's all about staying within your budget and also figuring out what those monthly costs and what those things are going to look like. And then once you kind of have done that work backwards, it's what actually can I afford in that price range.
No, that makes a lot of sense and is a very logical decision-making process.
I mean, it's tough because I think that top line sticker price is what people think about more.
Yeah, because people, when they ask you what your budget is, they don't ask you what you can pay for your mortgage. They ask you, are you looking at a $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 home?
Yeah. How much money can you put down too?
Yeah.
And also like realizing that closing costs, at least in the area where we're in, are pretty high. I think it was going to wind up being about $20,000 or more. That is a chunk of change on top of everything else. So being prepared for that and knowing about that, I think
turns out the Northeast is expensive.
Helpful. Yeah.
Who knew?
Who would know? So, yeah.
Awesome. And then, of course, we're going to kind of stop as we get to your realtor. What other steps did you do to prepare to, meet with a realtor? Are we missing anything? Do you look at homes on Zillow?
Yes, I still have a Zillow alert up just because it's the easiest way to, I think, see houses.
Yeah.
We had, even before this, we had gone through a process a few months ago where we saw a house that we liked, wanted to reach out at Zoho. We went as far as a pre-qual, and then we didn't really move forward from there. Obviously, by that point in time, that house was gone anyway.
Yeah.
So that was kind of our first dipping the toe in doing it. So once we were ready to start looking, our next step was a pre-qual. And I think we'll talk about my thoughts on the mortgage process in general.
That'll be a whole nother episode for you guys.
We'll leave that for later. But getting a pre-qual and ready to go and kind of expecting that once you're looking, it's going to move fast.
Yeah. And I think also I think this is something that I've also sat in on one of Stacy's sessions before, that she says is making both of yours absolutely must-have list and your I can live without this list. So what was the one thing that you were like, I absolutely have to have this in a house?
Central air.
That's my husband's too.
Which, oddly enough, where we're hopefully going to close on doesn't have central air. Outdoor space and location in terms of the towns and neighborhoods that we wanted. So that was the absolutely needed to have. And I think with a lot of other things, we were fairly flexible. I wanted, I do a lot of cooking. I wanted a good kitchen layout. I really wanted gas, not electric appliance too, but like that wasn't going to disqualify a house. But that was like, for me, I just don't I don't like cooking on electric. I just don't. So
I agree with you. I actually hate electric a lot.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being transparent and providing clarity around your home buying process.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to go through this series. And if you have any particular questions you'd like us to ask Jim about his home buyer process as someone, of course, who knows a lot about the mortgage industry, please feel free to email us at sales@lssoftwaresolutions.com. Sorry. And we'll be happy to pepper them in to the podcast. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Have a good one.